5-Minute Pearls for Clinical Practice. This week's Pearl is Creativity Part 2. Hello, this is Dr. Brian Morris, and this is 5-Minute Pearls for Clinical Practice, where you will learn the tools to provide exceptional care for your patients. This is the weekly podcast where you will be introduced to time-tested, evidence-based patient care strategies that aren't always taught in schools or training programs, but are nonetheless crucial for success in clinical practice. And each podcast episode is about 5 minutes. Last week, we discussed the first lesson in creativity, to tap our creative juices when the ideas are flowing and to redirect our efforts when ideas are not flowing. I call this go with the flow. So if you're feeling those creative juices, get those ideas down. Tap into those creative energies whenever the moment is right. This week, I'd like to discuss the actual process of creativity. How do we get those creative ideas from our mind into their final form, whether it's a blog post or a Facebook post or a podcast episode or a book or an office manual or a scientific paper or a lecture. Whatever creative project you're working on, I have found that there are two broad steps that are important to formulating ideas and putting them into their final usable form. The first step is what I call right brain work. It is a creative work that involves little to no analysis. There is little to no critical thinking involved in stage one. It is the stage of creativity where we simply put down as many great ideas as we can think of. Years ago, I heard a songwriter talking about how Bob Dylan used to write songs back in the 1960s and 1970s when he was one of the most prolific songwriters of all time. Apparently, Dylan had an extraordinary ability to tap into an almost unlimited sea of ideas within his mind without critically analyzing the ideas. So literally, he was able to access melody after melody, lyric after lyric, without overanalyzing it and without scrutinizing it to the point where he became frozen. He was thus able to access so many different ideas before he started to work on the final form of his songs. Indian philosopher Krishnamurti once said that the highest form of human intelligence is to observe without evaluating. Let me repeat. Indian philosopher Krishnamurti once said that the highest form of human intelligence is to observe without evaluating. By that, he meant that when tapping into our creative energies, we want to simply observe and get them down, not evaluate them. So when you're in stage one of creativity, try your best not to analyze your ideas. That would be step 2. So for step 1, though, we're just trying to access our ideas without evaluating. So for example, if you're writing a lecture about a certain topic, try to just get down as many ideas as possible that you could think of. And then in stage 2 is where you will worry about organizing and editing your ideas. Once we have spent time to get loads and loads of ideas down, we then take the critical step of stage 2. We start to notice that some of these ideas are wonderful, and we also notice that some of our ideas are unfortunately not that useful. They may have sounded really great at 3 a.m. when we first thought of them, but given the light of our critical thinking, these ideas don't hold up. Some ideas need to be molded, some tweaked, some shifted around, some put aside for future use. Stage 2 is a time to edit our ideas, to carefully construct them into usable form. So for example, let's say that you want to produce some patient education videos for your practice's YouTube channel. With stage 1 creativity, you would sit down and pour out your ideas for these videos, how they might look, the topics you'd like to cover. We let these ideas flow out of us without critiquing them. If details about a certain idea start to flow, we go with it. We get it all down on paper. We get it all down. We get everything down that we can. Then after that, we move on to stage 2 of creativity, and we start to mold our ideas into usable form. We edit. We shift around the ideas. In stage 2, we use our left brain thinking to mold our right brain stage 1 ideas into usable form. These are the two broad strokes of creativity. Use the right brain to unleash our ideas, and then use our left brain to organize and edit them. And once creativity is truly optimized, these two stages begin to overlap. We go back and forth between the stages. Sometimes we let ideas flow, and then just a few minutes later, we go into editing mode and we start scrutinizing and editing and molding. We flow and we evaluate. We use right and left brain creativity, and you'll find that the greatest creators, the great musicians, the great artists, the great movie makers are able to merge stage 1 and stage 2 creativity into one activity. They're able to let the ideas flow and then to edit and evaluate them pretty much at the same time. But it's helpful to differentiate these two stages. Find ways to make these two forces work seamlessly for you. Finding ways to make these two forces work seamlessly together is the key to unleashing your optimal creativity. Let's keep the dialogue going. Let me know what you think of this week's Pearl for Clinical Practice. You can email me at drmorris@5minutemd.com. That's DRMORRIS at 5minutemd.com. You can post your comments and your experiences on the 5 Minute MD Facebook page. You can follow us on Twitter at Brian Morris MD. And you can visit us anytime on our website, 5minutemd.com. Let your friends and your colleagues know about the podcast and make sure that you are subscribed on iTunes. When you are subscribed on iTunes, you will receive new podcast pearls as soon as they are posted. And if you have a few minutes and you enjoy what we're doing here on this podcast, please head over to iTunes and leave us a review. Thank you so much for listening. I will see you at the next 5.